Welcome. Today we're going to start with some quick visuals, alright? So I have in my hand a number of writing implements, alright? And each different implement represents something that you can do to keep yourself sane or an activity while in prison. So let's just say this pen represents eating in the commons area. This pen represents sleeping with the lights off. And this pen right here is exercise with a number of different tools, okay? Now, to give you some perspective, I'm going to show you the number of variety of items that you can do while in solitary confinement. Eat and sleep, alright? So, an article released on January 21st in 2017 by the U.S. Federal News Service stated that solitary confinement defines it as 23 hours. 23 hours with the lights on in a small featureless cell, no windows, no human contact, no visitors, and only 1 hour of outside time to exercise. Alright? Now, that's a horrible way to live your life, especially for years and days on end, alright? But you might think, okay, maybe it's not a big deal. Yes, that's horrible, but it's maybe not affecting that many people. Well, here's where you're wrong. According to the Daily Beast and an article released on April 13th, 2016, it mentioned that 80,000 prisoners are subjected to solitary confinement every year. That's a lot of people who are suffering and trapped in a small box for the majority of their lives. Alright, so today we're going to learn about the horrible effects of solitary confinement. Then we'll learn about its original purpose and why we still use it. And then finally, we'll learn about a solution that's going to put a stop to it and help everybody involved. Alright, so just to summarize, we're going to talk about the number of health problems and also this negative social impact that solitary confinement can have on the human mind physically and externally. We'll talk about how it's actually the reason why we stop it in place is for the protection of others and themselves, as well as a deterrent to keep people out of prison. And then we'll talk about a solution of how we can put an end to it and how you can make a difference. Alright, let's begin. So we'll first talk about the number of physical and mental health problems associated from solitary confinement. So the Daily Beast released an article on September 16, 2016 as well. And it said that someone who spent a number of years in solitary confinement lost the ability for basic motor skills. Now that means reaching out and touching things, walking from side to side, talking and walking. These are all basic human things that we learn as a child, and they were denied to him just because of a simple punishment. That's a problem. And then also, there's a number of mental effects, right? So another article released by a targeted news service on April 12th, 2018 mentioned that 70 to 90%, again that's 70-90% of 80,000 people suffer from illusions, hallucinations, hypersensitivity to stimuli, so basic light like this, or even just sounds that's just too much for them, okay? Paranoia, emotional instability, and even decreased sensory awareness, be able to process information, right? Again, number of basic human rights, just looking at light, looking at the sun, listening to someone talk. These are denied. These are denied to these people. They're basic human rights just because of a simple punishment. And if that's not enough, there's also a number of negative social impacts, alright? So another article released by Psychology Today on February 27th, 2019, it mentioned that someone who spent a number of years in solitary confinement actually lost the ability to recognize faces. So if you walk into a classroom and you say, those are my friends, that is the teacher, those are someone who I should avoid, I should be careful of. Very basic, recognizing facial structure, he lost that ability. Just to recognize people's faces, even his own family. That was difficult for him just because of a basic punishment. So now we've learned about the number of health and negative social impacts that solitary confinement can have. Next, let's talk about the causes and why it's still in place today, alright? So first, it's for the protection, okay? A, protection of others. B, protection against themselves or for themselves. This is talking about the prisoners. So, an article released by the Daily Beast on April 13, 2016 mentioned that people are put in solitary confinement because they are the worst of the worst. They are killing other prisoners. They're hurting them. They're leaders of gangs. so it's to protect other prisoners from themselves, which logically does make sense. Now B, it also is a protection for themselves. I talked about the Wall Street Journal on March 23rd, 2019. This was an article. It mentioned that some people request to be put in solitary confinement because gangs are a real problem within the prison atmosphere, and the only way to get out of a prison gang is either A, death, or B, removal from society. So sometimes the only way to save your own life is to remove yourself and enact solitary confinement. And if that's the best way to do it, there's a problem with our system, all right? Now, the solitary confinement is also used as a deterrent to others, all right? So Targeted News Service released an article on February 7th, 2017 that said that, like it or not, our justice system has been more faced and focused on retribution rather than rehabilitation. So that means that our justice system is doing everything to punish the criminals. Yes, they're criminals. They broke the law. They are deserving punishment. However, that does not mean that they need to be subjected to something as horrible as solitary confinement, but it is the purpose to keep people from stopping to break the law, and so it is used as a deterrent. So now we've learned about the number of causes of why we still use this and its original purpose as a deterrent, and then also protection from prisoners or against themselves. Next, let's learn about the solution, how we can put a stop to this, all right? So on a large scale, first, we're going to enact what's called a remote service tasks. So instead of being solitary confined, these prisoners will now be taken to do basic volunteering type work, such as picking up trash, painting walls, just very basic tasks that need to get done in society, so that way they have their mind focused on something, they can keep sane, they can see the outside world, they're not trapped in a box. However, they are contributing, there's a purpose to their lives. That's going to avoid all the negative problems we talked about. And then now that's on a large scale, so let's do about a small scale, okay? So Frontline actually released an article, talked about, and it was called The Last Days of Solidarity, all right? You can actually find this on PBS, and it's talked about why solitary confinement is so bad and how we can, put an end to it. So educate yourself, take the first step. This was released on April 18, 2017, like I said, on PBS. You can find it, and you can make a difference by educating yourself. Watch this documentary, all right? So finally, today we learned about the horrible effects of solitary confinement, its purpose, and how we can put an end to it. So we talked about the physical and mental health problems with it, as well as the social negative impacts. We also talked about its original purpose, as in it's for protection of others and themselves, and as a deterrent, we talked about a solution for all. So now, let's learn to keep people sane with multiple activities. Thank you.